My name is Anastasia. I represent University of the Arts London in Austria and Slovakia. And today we prepared an information session for the student counselors and art teachers. John from London is joining me for the portfolio part of the session. And I will first talk more about the application procedures, deadlines, and the university itself. University of the Arts London, in case you don't know, is number 2 in the world for art and design. This university has 6 colleges. All of them have their own different specializations, but they're all very well known, famous, and form together one big university. It's also probably the biggest university in the world for art and design in terms of facilities and student numbers too. The study areas. There are over 100 courses at undergraduate level. They are in all various visual arts and design areas, such as art, communication, computing, design, fashion, media, performing arts, screen. I am here in case you or your students have any questions about any particular courses, or if they are not sure what to choose, you can always get in touch with me and we can talk more about it in more details and exactly with the regards of a particular student. The undergraduate application procedure, the most important part for the student course. Basically, the procedure is a little bit different because of the creative courses, because students have to submit their portfolios. So first of all, it's a standard application you do via UCAS, where the student can choose up to 5 courses within UK. And normally the deadline is in the end of January. This application is submitted via this generalized UCAS system. After that, once UAL receives particular applications, it may be 1 or 2 or even 5 different courses at UAL, the student will receive their information for UAL portal login. And there they will be able to see their applications and they will be able to add documents to their applications, like their transcripts, for example, or a personalized personal statement, because there's one that you include with UCAS and it's more general. It should apply to all the 5 courses that the student chooses. But for the particular courses at UAL, we highly recommend the student to write personalized personal statement. And this can be added via the UAL portal after they receive the application. If you have any difficulties with that, I'm here, I can help. I have my own account with the portal where I can see applications of students that I am in charge of, and I can add the documents on behalf of the students. Once this is done, at some stage, the student will receive an email asking for their portfolio or video task or interview schedule. This depends on the course, and each course has their own requirements. Sometimes it may be a written assignment, sometimes it may be the visual portfolio or a video task. So basically students have to prepare that. Normally they will have about 10 days to submit it again via the same portal at UAL. Or they will be able to choose the date and time for their interview if it's, for example, if it is a performance course. Then if everything is okay, they will get a conditional offer, or they will see their application was rejected, for example. Maybe they applied for 3 or 4 courses and were accepted for one course, but were not accepted for the other course. So they will see the outcome. If the application is successful, the student receives a conditional offer. And at this point, they can already accept this offer if they like, or they might even receive 2 or 3 offers to different courses, and they can choose the course that or the course of their first choice, possibly. Once they accept their offer, they can start planning their accommodation arrangements. Actually, the early booking for accommodations starts end of April, like this year it was April 29. This is only for those students who have the offer and accepted the offer. Yesterday, they started the second stage of accommodation bookings already for all students. Normally, a conditional offer would contain conditions on English requirement and completion of current course of study. So basically, if they are at your school, yeah, they're in their final year. Once their final transcripts are done, they can add it to the application. And unless they are a citizen of a country with a majority English-speaking population, they will have to sit an English test. Even if a student is an English language native speaker with an Austrian passport, they will have to sit an IELTS test. Doesn't matter. So unless they have a citizenship of, I don't know, USA or UK, then they don't have to do it. And once all the conditions are met and the student accepted the offer and the student paid the initial deposit, the CAS letter will be issued by the university, and then the student can proceed to the student visa. Again, if you need any assistance from my side, I'm always here to help. In terms of support for international students that University of the Arts London offers. First of all, representatives in country like myself. Right now I'm covering Austria and Slovakia, but I also get students contacting me from Germany, Czech Republic, even Switzerland now. And as long as there is no appointed representative in your country, yeah, I will help you, no problem. What else? We do school visits by the academics. Normally once a year, we have someone coming to us from London, and we can go and visit the schools. And then we can run some creative workshops for the students, talk about portfolio. And I really always ask the student counselors and the art teachers, we on these visits, we really need to talk, and we need to see students from year 10 and year 11. For year 12, it's too late. Unless they are already have been preparing for it and have been thinking about their future studies in art and design, and they have a good portfolio, then yes. But if it's just their momental decision that they do in September of year 12, it's not going to work for a UAL application. They have to be really, really well prepared. And this is why we prefer to speak to younger students, so that they can they have more time to think about their choices, and they have more time to prepare their portfolio, and they can start already working on it. Because basically in September of your year 12, your portfolio has to be pretty much ready. You can have a chance for an advisory interview and talk about it in November. Then you will have a couple of months to work on it further and develop it and present it for your application, because by the end of January, you already have to send your VA application. And this brings us to the next point of the advisory portfolio interviews. This is specifically organized by the university for international students. It's done online. Normally we run them in the beginning of November and around mid-February. Students can talk to one of the UAL academics, show their work, talk about their work, talk about their personal statement, get some advice on how they can improve this portfolio, maybe get some advice on their course choices, because sometimes students think that they want to do one thing and they just don't they don't know about all sorts of different options that exist. And sometimes an international coordinator can actually give them advice on probably some other courses that they would be even more suitable for. To sign up for this advisory interview, we will need a student to fill in a couple of forms beforehand and send their passport and their portfolio. And this has to be done like about a week before the scheduled interview date. And this is very important. And one more thing, before I believe that this is not some kind of service available to UK students, But after talking to my colleagues, we decided that if the student has a UK citizenship, but the student is studying at an international school in Austria, for example, or any market that I'm covering, it's okay for them to also sign up for this interview, but they have to be prepared and they have to send everything in advance. Yeah, they can use that option as well. And yeah, and their portfolio preparation courses, they exist online and face-to-face at UAL, and they are available to all students. Of course, they can use that option as well to prepare their work for the application. Alternative pathways, which are also not very obvious to many students. It's 1 school year of studies, 2 semesters. There are a few pre-degree courses that UAL offers. They are a bit easier to get into because the portfolio requirements are lower, while bachelor degree courses require portfolio which is already focused on the subject. The pre-degree courses, they require a more broad portfolio. They want to see the potential and the research and development and what student is thinking about and how they explore their creativity. These courses also have a later application deadline. It's end of February. And actually, if the course is not closed, if there's still space, even later, it's also possible to apply. The application for pre-degree courses done directly to UAL, so they can still have 5 courses listed in their UCAS application in different UK institutions, and plus on top of that, they can use this backup option and also apply for a pre-degree course. And then they can choose what they want to do. Actually, this year I had a very good student from Austria. He applied for 3 different BA courses, and he also applied for 2 pre-degree courses as a backup option. In the end, he received an offer for one of the BA courses and for both pre-degree courses, and he chose to do a foundation course first because he realized that this will prepare him much better for his future BA studies. Is the list of the pre-degree courses. The foundation diploma in art and design is a more broad course, and we call it a diagnostic. And it's a great option for students who know that they want to do something art and design related, but they're not sure if it's graphics or media, or if they're interested in fashion, or if they're interested in product design. This course lets them explore and try different options and then make their decision a little bit later and then apply for their BA course. This course also has pathways, and if student is like more sure in which direction they want to go, they can take one of the pathways. And of course, the hardest pathway to get into on this course is fashion and textiles, because this pathway leads you to BA Fashion at Central St. Martin's, which is the most competitive BA Fashion course in the world, especially the women's wear part of it. So if we have a student who is very, very interested in fashion, we suggest them to rather apply for a preparation for fashion at London College of Fashion, because they will get more chance. Because if they don't get into fashion and textiles pathway in the diagnostic foundation, they will not get to the fashion CSM. And yeah, so the specialized pre-degree courses are media and screen design, and that's at LCC, and 2 fashion preparation courses at London College of Fashion. So why study a pre-degree course? Yeah, as we already talked about, it's to get much better prepared for your future BA studies, and also to explore different opportunities. Again, why this student from Austria chose the foundation course to do it in the first place was because he thought he would have wider opportunities afterwards. Maybe he will decide to go to graphic design as he was offered from LCC, but maybe he will choose graphic design at Central St. Martin's or somewhere else, and this extra year of studies will give him much better opportunities. Application advice about the personal statement for the students, what they should do with their personal statement. Again, my personal advice would be to come to an advisory interview with an international coordinator, show them the statement and show them your portfolio and talk about. They really give very good advice. They will never tell you write this and don't write this, no, but they will say you should. This is an interesting idea. You should talk a little bit more about that, or this is something that is not interesting. Just remove. So we don't do it for the student, but we guide them. Then portfolio, yeah, and there is a page with a lot of application advice and portfolio advice with videos with international coordinators explaining what they're looking for in the portfolio.
My name's John. I'm a member of the international recruitment team at the University of the Arts London. So I work with our international academic coordinators, plan our in-country visits, and I myself look after Austria. So hopefully I'll be coming at some point. I'm really looking forward to meeting some of the school counsellors in person and some of the students as well. My background is in the arts, so I'm super passionate about it. Very, very keen to help students that are interested in the arts progress and have successful, valuable careers. We need the arts. So if as well you're interested in an academic coming to visit your school, then that's definitely something that you can talk to Anastasia about, and she'll get in touch with me and we can liaise and figure out a time where that will work. Now, to deep dive a bit more into portfolio preparation, as Anastasia said, the portfolio is an incredibly important part of the application. We take it very, very seriously, and the portfolio is the best way a student has that's applying for a portfolio course of demonstrating exactly why they are right for that course. Essentially, the portfolio is their opportunity to demonstrate their creativity, show off their personality, show off any technical skills or abilities that they might have, and also just prove their commitment to the subject that they're interested in studying. And yeah, I think, students often combine work that is what they're doing at the moment in their school, in their art classes, as well as stuff that they're working on outside in their own time to create a really strong portfolio. Now, we always encourage our students to look at development. This is just as important as the final piece of work that they might be developing themselves when they're putting the portfolio together. And I'll break that down in more detail shortly. Some other very quick tips to add in there. We love to see a bit of variety in the work. Yeah, students that can show off multiple different skill sets or thoughts of points of interest is really valuable. We're interested in a student's most recent work. So if a student's looking at a piece of work that they did, 5 years ago, that's probably not appropriate. We want to see what they've been up to more recently, because that's going to be the most relevant. A really great tip that I learned from an academic is to display your strongest pieces of work at the beginning and the end of the portfolio. Now, the reason why is that the academics, they view the portfolio on a screen via PebblePad, but what they found is that a lot of students tend to hide what they consider their weaker work at the back of the portfolio. So they might start out really strong and then it gradually gets weaker. So what academics often do now is they check the beginning and then they go straight to the end to see if that's just as strong. And if it is, then they know they're on to a winner. So bookending your portfolio with things that the academic's going to remember is a really great way to go about it. The other thing I can't stress enough is how important it is to encourage the student to check the portfolio requirements on our web pages. From course to course, the requirements do differ. So making sure that the student is aware of what those requirements are ahead of time so that there's no nasty surprises that they aren't sufficiently prepared for is absolutely vital and a really good way to make sure that they're ready. We really like to think of a portfolio as a window into your own unique world through which we can see your skills, personality, and potential. That's what we often say to students. A collection of your work demonstrating how your creativity has developed, keyword there, developed, over a period of time. So what should a portfolio actually contain? Ideally, it would be from the past 2 years, and it's a visual representation of the student. Now, rather than a collection of final outcomes, so for example, if we have a student who's applying for fine art, they might be looking at painting. We don't want to see a 20-page portfolio of final paintings. We want to see 3 to 5 projects demonstrating the following: interests, inspirations, research and responses, experimentation with different materials, reflecting on how these have shaped your ideas. For undergraduates, a really good demonstration of refined use of subject-specific techniques to support your ideas, and then your final outcomes or any work in progress. So what it should look like is a collection of stories about different projects. The 3 to 5 projects rule is really, really important. And I think one of the most common ways that students go wrong, they think, oh my God, I need to just show off every single good piece of work that I've got. And we want to see all of it. We want to see the things that have gone wrong, the things that were successful, what changed, and all of the good stuff in there is really, really valuable. Laying out your work is obviously incredibly important as it's a visual way of expressing yourself, and making sure that that's easy and well communicated to the admissions tutor or academic looking at it is really crucial. We always recommend using an invisible grid guide to help students lay out their pages as clearly as possible. So as you can see from the examples there, use of white space is incredibly important as a presentation tool. We don't want students to overcrowd their pages. And because the academic will be viewing the portfolio in a landscape format, it means that the student is able to just the academic rather is very able to just read exactly what's going on very clearly. We always encourage students to avoid dominant backgrounds. Using templates, pre-existing templates tend not to work. Too much text is a big no-no. The personal statement there is there for that, so no text unless it's to kind of back up a point that's being made with a piece of visual work. And definitely avoid chaotic presentation where possible. Now, there is no standard number of artworks in a portfolio, as the requirements do change from course to course. Now, it's important to, as well as looking on our web pages, follow the digital application guidelines that the student will receive via email, and submit the number of pages for your selected courses specifically. So it needs to be the right number of pages. Now, as I've already said, we want that to be 3 to 5 projects, and each of those should show the following 3 steps. And we love these 3 steps. We stick to them at all costs, and that's research, development, and outcome. So a student might have a final piece of work, that is their outcome. Now they need to also think about the research and development that went into it, hopefully as part of the entire project. So let's start with a bit of a breakdown of research and the kind of thing that we would expect to be included as part of the student's research. So we want the student to show us which subject area they've been exploring, what have they been inspired by, what have they discovered, or what are they hoping to discover. Research can be grouped under a bunch of themes that the students identified and that they're exploring. We always encourage the student to include initial and primary research. They can add things to that like mind maps, so thinking about what kind of things were coming off of a topic, and their personal responses to their findings. We also encourage students to include secondary research from other artists and designers, but only if they are able to source and credit those other designers or whoever they might be referencing, artists, appropriately. So obviously it's a limited page count, so we don't want the student to fill up their entire research with someone else's work. We want it to be their work, and only use other pieces of work to really highlight this was a massive inspiration to me because of X, Y, and Z. For undergraduate applications in particular, it's really important for the student to analyze the relevance of those reference points for their own research to make sure that it makes sense. So a really good example that I can think of for a student who I was once a part of, I saw an academic review and they were very, very kind of impressed by the portfolio, was a student applying from Asia, and their topic or the theme that they identified was loneliness. They were an animation student. And so a lot of their work was looking at the move to London and how that had affected them. This is obviously after they started, but it's still a good example. And they developed this project that was kind of using their stuffed animals from home as a way of expressing their loneliness. So their initial research was all around what might loneliness look like, how could they expand it, what parts was that, how was that personal to them, and visually what did that look like? And that developed into loads of different interesting examples of how they might animate stuffed animals and express that loneliness. And it was really, really remarkable piece of work, and a great starting point just as a theme, loneliness. Now, the development is the next step from that. So once the themes have kind of started to settle, we want the student to show us the steps and stages that informed any creative decisions that they made when they were working towards their final outcome. So we want the student to tell the story of each project from the initial ideas to the final outcome or the working progress using their sketchbooks, their absolutely valuable sketchbooks and visual journals. I imagine most of the students that are applying will have sketchbooks that are like their babies, and they're full of all sorts of wonderful, fantastic developmental work, doodles and sketches and more, that are really fantastic starting point for the student to think about drawing their work from to put into their portfolio. Demonstrate your learning journey for each project, including experimentation, samples, prototypes if they're doing something like product design or fashion, okay, if they've made a prototype for what they wanted the garment or the object to look like. And of course, models and making processes as well. A lot of students tend to use things like collages to try and fit maybe something that they're thinking of designing to scale, which is also really fantastic. It's also really a great idea, particularly through the development stage, to add simple titles and notes, but not to go overboard with the text on each page or slide to help the academic understand the decision-making progress. So for UJ applications, this would include critical reflections on your creative process. So that might be a heading to say which part of the project it was. It might be examples of what loneliness could look like with a bunch of different drawings, just very small, use of text to reference and explain what is shown on the page in order to make that development part really important. Now, the outcome part of the portfolio is the opportunity to show the outcome of the projects, obviously, using very, very clear photographs and or scans. So there's a really fantastic picture there. You can see the kind of boots, the hand boots that this particular student made for their foundation diploma in art and design. But you can see very, very clearly in quite an exciting way what they look like. The color looks fantastic against that white background, and they've put it on an actual person so you can see it to scale. So that's a really good example. The academic will want to see the materials that have been used and how they've been used. In order to document the making process, they want to show the work in its ideal context. Okay, so for example, if it's garments, as I said, or jewelry, that needs to be on the body. That's the best way to show it. If it's a product, we want a product that's being used for purpose. One student I know they designed and created what they imagined a chair that they would use in a study space that they could also sleep in because they would get so tired when they were studying. So they created this really awesome little chair that kind of had a hood that they could go to sleep in. And then part of their outcome was pictures of the chair that they created with them asleep in it. Fantastic. So it was the purpose that it was designed for. And similarly, architecture, we want to see, collaged into an environment. Maybe it's to scale with small statues of people so that you can see what that looks like. That's the best way to show off an outcome. For undergraduate applications, it's really important to reflect on the way the distribution of the work affects the way it is received as well. So very important to also keep that in mind. Now, some kind of little tips that I just wanted to summarize before we finish. It's really important where possible to be decisive. Encourage your students to choose very carefully. I think the impulse is to throw everything in the kitchen sink in there because you're worried when it's your work that something will be missed out, but that's not true. The academics really want to see the students' ability to edit. They want to see how they curated their portfolio so that it tells a story that they want it to tell. So only the crucial parts of their process should be shown. The student should absolutely only showcase their absolute strongest work. That goes without saying. A collection of varied projects is always a valuable addition, as I've mentioned. And reveal selected processes or stages. Keep supplementary text precise, as I mentioned. And then, of course, at the bottom, check and check again. Similar to how you would write a personal statement or a job application even, you would proofread it and then you would proofread it again and then you would proofread it again and then you would proofread it one more time just to be sure. And portfolios are absolutely no different. The more times you go over that and check that it's working, the better. And also encourage your students to ask each other and hopefully you as well for your opinions in terms of really finessing that because it will really make a big difference. Some really important questions about the communication that we want to ask of the portfolio. So as we say, it should be a visual story. So it should have a narrative. Each project should be really quite easy to follow for the academic. So thinking about things like, does your portfolio flow? Is it clear where projects begin and end? It might just be that they require a title to really ground that. Have you communicated important ideas, concepts, and discoveries? And if not, why? Why are they not being communicated as you would like? At the end of it, will the academic be able to understand what has motivated the student to do that project? And finally, have you connected your personal statement with your portfolio? So as Anastasia mentioned, that portfolio personal statement is really designed to kind of allow the student to explain those bits of work. So making sure that there's that connection between them is really important. Now, coming back a little bit to the outcomes, photographing your work is so important. And the number of portfolios that I feel like we've seen that have the most remarkable research and development stages, and then they're kind of botched in the outcome because the photography just isn't thought about clearly enough. Now, we're definitely not saying that a student needs to have, like a professional photography style piece of work, because that's probably extortionate cost and not worth it. However, just some basics to make sure that they stick to when they're photographing their work will really improve what that looks like. If the students are photographing the work themselves, they should try to use natural light rather than, unless there's a reason they're using artificial light. Turn on the auto white balance rather than using the flash, and use that natural light to its best. Best outcome. Take clear, simple photographs on a white or neutral background. A neutral background I can't emphasize enough. Students often aren't aware of what the background is, and then it becomes rather chaotic. Consider additional close-up shots of details. So yeah, close-up shots of details you absolutely can't. I can't recommend enough. If there's a particular use of texture that the student wants to show off, just having a picture that really shows that close up will really draw the academic in and kind of make them ask more questions. Similar as what I said before, you want to show the work in context or in practical use. And when photographing large works, including dimensions within your captions to show scale. So yeah, if you can't get like an actual person in there, just write down what the dimensions are so that the academic can see how big or small that work is intended to be. So that's everything I've got on portfolios. But I would just add, so I run and create set up all of the portfolio advisories that Anastasia was mentioning, and they are really, really invaluable resource. I can't recommend students engaging with them enough. And just really taking advantage of the academics' expertise in allowing them to develop their portfolio to the best of their ability. So please do express your interest in those. We are in the process of expanding them. So definitely those bottleneck periods like November and February are great times to go, but they will be happening also as early as September. So yeah, I definitely would encourage students to engage with our advisories there.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention that we do run online portfolio workshops sometimes. Normally, it's a couple of times per year we do that when we have someone from London talking about portfolio in more details, and students can join and they can also ask questions.